In a mysterious room, Alderson wakes up without any idea of how he got there. The room is shaped like a cube, and each side has a door. He's also been given a uniform with his name. Alderson opens one of the walls and looks through the short passage to discover that the neighboring room is exactly the same. When he steps back, the door closes on its own. Next, Alderson tries the door on the floor, and he finds a matching room again. The same happens with the one on the other wall, so he decides to move ahead. In this room, Alderson looks around before taking a step, only to suddenly be chopped into small pieces by a razor-sharp grate. Sometime later, Quentin changes rooms and finds one with a sleeping Worth. He tries to wake him up to no avail. Quentin then opens a wall but finds nothing in the other room. When he turns around, Worth is finally awake. At that moment they hear a noise in the neighboring room and Quentin gets into position. The wall door opens and Holloway appears, so Quentin grabs her by the clothes and throws her on the ground. He's about to beat her up, but she screams and he realizes she's another victim, so he apologizes as he lets her go. Suddenly they hear someone yelling for help. Quentin opens a door and finds Levin in the other room. She gets ready to cross rooms but Quentin makes her stop. After taking a quick look around, he gets into her room and helps her cross the passage to join the others. In the process, her glasses fall and crack. Then the ceiling door opens to reveal Ren, who comes down to join them. Quentin tells the group that they can't go around climbing into spaces because there are traps and shares that when he looked into the lower room, he almost lost his head. Holloway notices that Worth's head is bleeding and checks his wound, explaining she's a doctor. Ren takes off his boots and throws one into a neighboring room. A trap immediately activates and sets the boot on fire, so Ren concludes there are motion sensors in the walls. Quentin asks if anyone remembers how they got there, but nobody does. They all were going through the usual routines only to pass out and wake up there wearing these uniforms. While hearing weird noises from above, the group discusses what to do. Levin thinks they should wait in that room for someone, however Worth thinks nobody will come for them. Most of them agree they should look for an exit. When Levin starts having a breakdown, Quentin calms her down and explains he's a cop, so he promises to keep her safe. Ren throws his boot into another room and nothing happens, so they move to that one. They repeat this process a couple of times as the strange mechanical sounds seem to be getting closer. While crossing one of the passages, Levin notices a small plaque and puts on her glasses to read it. There are numbers on it, and each room has a different plaque. The group hopes this doesn't mean there are over 500 million rooms. Holloway points out that they'll only live for 3 days in these stressful conditions without food and water. Ren reveals he's been sucking on a button and tells her to do the same because it keeps the saliva flowing. A few cubes later, Ren stops the group from entering the next room. The boot is fine. However, he's noticed that the air is dry in there, so he thinks there's a molecular chemical sensor that detects hydrogen excreted from the skin. He also reveals he knows all this because he's a sensor expert. Quentin realizes Ren is the infamous Bird of Attica who has escaped from 7 prisons. Ren confirms it and admits he's only working with them because he may need their shoes in the future, but if they behave foolishly he'll leave them behind. After a condescending speech on keeping focus, Ren tests another room with the boot and crosses the passage. He lands safely on the other side, but after a second, a device sprays acid on his face. The door has already closed, so Quentin opens it again and Ren comes back with melting skin. His body squirms for a little while before he finally dies. If Ren Boot's plan doesn't always work, they need to analyze the whole situation again. Quentin points out he's a cop, Ren was an escape artist, and Holloway is a doctor, so everyone must have a purpose here. However, Levin says she's just a college student and Worth has a boring desk job. Holloway starts ranting, saying they came into their home and stripped them bare. She laments the loss of her jewelry, and Quentin realizes that they took everything except for Levin's glasses. He concludes they let her have them because they expect her to be able to read and wonders if she's studying math. Levin puts her glasses on and starts reading the plaques. She also remembers the numbers of every room they've gone through, which helps her realize that prime numbers only appear in rooms with traps. Levin chooses the only passage with no prime number and crosses safely, confirming her theory. With Levin guiding them, the group keeps moving from room to room without issues. Around 9 or 10 hours later, they're still trapped and don't feel like they've made any progress. Holloway is starting to lose her mind, so Quentin chats with her to distract her. She doesn't want to discuss her job, so she asks about his family. Quentin shares that he has 3 kids and he's separated from his wife. The group moves to the next room and Levin can't find the correct numbers on the walls or the floor, which means the next door is the ceiling one. Quentin climbs to open it, only for Kazan to fall on top of the group. He rests his forehead on the wall while doing some peculiar hand gestures. Holloway realizes he's autistic and promises to take care of him. More hours pass with the group going from room to room following the numbers. They discuss theories to explain this weird building and Holloway believes the military did it, but Quentin thinks it's some psycho billionaire's entertainment. Holloway laughs at the idea before moving to the next room. Suddenly she can't breathe and Kazan starts yelling, thinking she's dying. However, she accidentally swallowed her button and is just fine. When Levin finds the next correct numbers, Worth disagrees with her. Quentin trusts Levin more, so he moves ahead, only for Levin to yell at him to make him freeze. He realizes he's surrounded by razor wire and jumps out of the trap right before it closes, although he still gets a cut on his leg. Kazan starts yelling again and stays in the previous room while the others join Quentin. Since they can barely hear anything with Kazan screaming, Quentin sends Worth to take care of the boy. Then he tells Levin and Holloway that he's suspicious of Worth because he knew this room wasn't the right one. When Worth comes back with Kazan, the group decides to have a break since Levin's system can't be trusted anymore. Levin starts making a bunch of calculations and Kazan pees in a corner. Worth is amused by everything and Quentin calls him out for his constant negative attitude, so an argument ensues. Quentin points out that if nothing really matters then Worth could simply just jump into the next random room. This makes Worth finally snap and yell that there's no way out. He knows this because he was hired to design the exterior of the building, but he doesn't have any other information. They only asked him for a hollow shell shaped like a cube. Worth never left his office, they just called him and gave him instructions without ever sharing their identity. Quentin is skeptical but Holloway explains that's how conspiring companies stay hidden. They keep each employee separated so nobody knows too much. She starts ranting against the system and the government, however Worth thinks it's a headless blunder that only appears to be a master plan. He theorizes that nobody is watching them and it's just a forgotten project that some employees are still using just to get their paychecks. His conclusion is that everything is pointless, which leaves everyone in philosophical despair. When Worth mocks Quentin, the cop finally snaps and starts beating him up. Levin stops him and reminds him that they need Worth since he's the only one with any information. Then Levin starts asking Worth questions, so he tells her the dimensions of the cube and that there's only one door, but he doesn't know where they put it. She walks around the room to make some calculations that she compares to the dimensions Worth shared, and in the end she concludes that there are 17,576 rooms. Thinking about this a bit more, Levin realizes that the numbers are coded Cartesian coordinates, usually used in three-dimensional graphs. This means the numbers are like latitude and longitude on a map that tell them where they are inside the cube. After a quick calculation, she tells the group that there's 7 rooms from the edge. The group starts moving again and Quentin decides Worth will always go first to check for traps. While moving through the next passage, Levin finds some coordinates that don't make sense because they appear to indicate a place outside the cube, but they're still trapped. When they finally reach the edge, they open the floor door while Kazan keeps repeating the word trap. Just as he predicts, they see spikes appearing in the walls of the next room which are activated by sound. It seems this edge room has traps in every direction, so they should backtrack. Quentin refuses and thinks they should cross the room anyway, otherwise they'll never make any progress. Another argument ensues and in the end they agree to advance. After the group manages to explain to Kazan that he must stay quiet, Quentin lowers Worth into the room. After hearing the mechanical noises again, Worth opens the next door and tests it with the boot. Nothing happens, so the others start coming down too. Kazan accidentally steps on the floor door and his pants get stuck, but Holloway manages to keep him quiet and free him without making noise. Now only Quentin is left. He moves carefully while the floor door starts opening and everyone freezes when it makes a noise, but this doesn't activate the trap. Kazan makes an excited noise and Quentin has to jump quickly into the next room, avoiding the trap at the last second. A furious Quentin starts yelling at Kazan, accusing him of endangering the pack. Holloway screams at Quentin too and calls out his abuse of authority. A new argument begins and Quentin believes that Holloway should be grateful for the police since they protect the city. Holloway only responds that this attitude is why Quentin's wife left him, so he slaps her. Afterward Worth opens the next door and everyone is excited to find the outer shell. It's too dark to see anything and there's nothing on the walls to hold on to for climbing. Quentin decides to make a rope by tying all their jackets and pants together, saying he wants to swing across. Levin points out he's too heavy and wants to go instead since she's the lightest, but they need her to do the math. Holloway volunteers to go instead. While the others hold the makeshift rope, Holloway carefully climbs down the shell wall. When she reaches the end of the rope, she starts swinging to try to reach the opposite wall. Suddenly the room starts shaking and causes the group to accidentally drop the rope, so Quentin quickly jumps into the passage to retake it. Levin and Worth grab his legs to hold him in place and Holloway climbs back up until she's holding on to Quentin's hand. At that moment his face changes and Holloway cries out before he lets go, dropping her to her death. When Quentin goes back inside, he pretends that Holloway fell by accident. He wants to keep moving but Levin is on the edge of a breakdown, so Worth convinces him to take a break. They decide to take a nap and Quentin waits until everyone is asleep to steal the boot from Worth. Then he wakes Levin up and takes her to the next room. He thinks that without the others, she can concentrate. Things get awkward when he starts babbling about them being the key and touches her inappropriately, saying they're a man and a woman as the two halves of the equation. Levin immediately tries to run from him but Quentin easily catches her and tries to take her to another room. Suddenly Worth brings him down, allowing Levin to leave his arms. As Kazan also joins them, Quentin goes on another rant, saying everyone else is a spy and insulting Holloway. This makes Levin realize he dropped her, so she and Worth tell him to leave alone. Quentin throws the boot at Worth's face to bring him down, then he starts beating him up with a crazy look on his face. Afterward Quentin throws Worth through the floor door. To everyone's surprise, he just starts laughing. The trio decides to go down and discovers that they're back in the room with Ren Body, which means they've been going in circles. Quentin freaks out and asks Levin where they are, pushing her toward the numbers. Levin says she doesn't know and yells at him, pointing out that he hasn't done anything. Feeling nothing but despair, Quentin says Worth was right, there's no way out. While Quentin cries, Worth remembers that Ren was killed in the next room. He takes a look and sees there's nothing out there, so they're back on the edge. This doesn't make sense because he remembers Ren entering a room. Quentin thinks he's wasting time and throws the boot at him, so it falls down the edge. Worth ignores him and keeps talking, pointing out that they haven't been moving in circles. It's the rooms that have been moving all along, which explains the weird mechanical noises and the shaking. Levin realizes he's right and they look at the plaques together. They conclude that the numbers are a list of all the coordinates that the room passes through. The room that had a coordinate outside the cube must be the bridge to enter the cube. They didn't see the exit because it had already moved. They have to go back to that room and wait until it returns to its original position to leave. Levin does a bunch of calculations using the numbers surrounding them and concludes that the rooms will return to their original positions in 2 more moves. Quentin wants to get moving, but there's still the matter of traps. Levin has realized that the traps are identified by the power of a prime, which is a number too big for her to calculate in her head. An argument ensues, but they're interrupted by Kazan, who solves the first equation in just a second. It turns out he's the kind of autistic person who can do genius-level calculations in his mind. After Kazan gives them the answer, Quentin throws Worth into the other room without warning. No trap is activated, so they keep moving with Kazan as their guide. Quentin keeps complaining about everything and doesn't move fast enough, so his head gets trapped when the door closes against his neck. Levin and Kazan rush to check the other doors while Worth uses the chance to push Quentin back and close the door. Then Worth makes Levin check the floor door and steps away, so Quentin reopens the door to join them. Suddenly Worth opens the floor door and Quentin falls, hitting his head hard enough to bleed. Now the trio can keep moving without his violent behavior. A few cubes later, they find the edge again, and they have to move out of the way when a room slides down. It lands in front of their door, confirming their theory. Levin and Worth move to the next room, but before Kazan can join them, the rooms move and he's taken away. They can hear him screaming nearby, so Worth crosses a few rooms to find him. However, Kazan is scared and refuses to move. Meanwhile, Levin steps on something painful and finds the shard that fell from her glasses, which means they're at the beginning and they should have never moved like she said. She tells the others to hurry up, so Worth promises to get Kazan tons of candy to finally convince him to move. The trio reunites right before the room moves again. Levin checks the door but there's nothing, so they wait for the next move. After the room shakes again, the group moves to the next one and Kazan rushes to find the right numbers. When he opens the right door, they finally see sunlight. However, Worth refuses to leave because he has nothing to live for and thinks the only thing outside is boundless human stupidity. Levin tries to comfort him, but she's interrupted when she's suddenly stabbed in the chest. Quentin is back and has used a doorknob to kill her. A furious Worth tackles and the men start fighting, but Quentin quickly stabs Worth too. The room is starting to shake, so Kazan opens the exit and leaves. Quentin tries to follow him but Worth grabs his legs to keep him back. When the room moves, Quentin is crushed to death. Worth collapses and moves to die next to Levin while Kazan walks to his freedom. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.